review for Death Wish 1974 with Charles Bronson, directed by Michael Winner. So, a New York City architect becomes a one-man vigilante squad after his wife is murdered by street punks in self-defense. The vengeful man kills muggers on the mean streets after dark. So that's basically the synopsis. If you could do me a favor and smash that like button, that'd be great. Really helps the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. So here we go. So Death Wish, a movie I saw years ago, and I've always liked it. I've heard some people criticize it that it kind of takes a while for him to become a vigilante, and maybe the pacing, but I don't know. For me, it's a great movie. The pacing's fine with me because I think it makes sense. He's this successful architect. He has a wife and daughter, and unfortunately, one day when they're at the store, these groups of punks, really, they look like low life degenerates. And of course, oh man, Jeff Goldblum. They even call him Freaks. He's freak number one. And Jeff Goldblum really looks dirty and grimy in this movie. You can tell, I don't know, maybe he just did tons of drugs, and he definitely looks out of it, and just, if you saw that guy in the middle of the night and you're walking down the street, chances are he's gonna mug you. But a very young in the movie. Perfect casting, and basically they follow him home, and they break into their house, and the scene's brutal too. I forgot how brutal it is. It goes on for a while. Beating and, let's say, doing other things to the daughter, and just absolutely a brutal scene that is not quick. So, and they do that, and then they I think they rob them. I think they get $20. So they do it for basically no reason. And then, he gets called, Bronson. He goes to the hospital. He finds out his wife is dead, but his daughter survived. But basically, now the daughter is all messed up. She's semi-catatonic. She really won't speak. I'm not sure if she's eating food. It's very sad what happens to her. And then the husband, who, you could tell likes his wife, but I don't know. I think he just kind of throws her in that mental institution a little too quick, But I guess Bronson does too, but, Bronson doesn't know what to do. And I don't know, the husband kind of says something mean to him, well, she doesn't want you around because you remind her of of the attack, and it's what are you talking about? I wasn't there. And it's yeah, but your wife was the one who died. I'm not sure I even buy that, because he wanted to go with them on vacation to the beach to take her away, which I assume the husband did. And then he's oh, I'll come along, and he didn't want him to. So I don't know. The husband, I don't think, is shown in a great light in this movie. What does he say? He's just sometimes you just gotta cut tail and run, or something. It's wow, it's your wife. But she's pretty much hopeless. It doesn't really say the progression of time, but I assume it's 6 months or so, and then 6-7 months, and then they put her in the mental institution. So that was brutal. It's just got a really nice grimy look, especially the second half of the movie, when they're in New York. I really like that. I really like the look. Um, I think it's believable too that he goes back to work. He kind of just throws himself in his work. He goes out to Phoenix and to look at a project to build a bunch of houses. And he's talking to this guy who's kind of like, you know, almost like a cowboy a little bit, but he owns the land. And he basically introduces him to guns, and they go shooting. So that kind of gets him connected to weapons, which will become more important later. But I don't know. I just think that this movie takes its time. Now, I mean, trying to remember the remake of Death Wish, but yeah, the remake of Death Wish, it's all just much quicker, and everything's just done much quicker, much faster editing. But I really like the way that this movie breathes, and you really feel for the guy. And he's like, you know, hatred of criminals, and these are bad people. You know, it's like I have no sympathy. I have like no sympathy for a lot of the people he goes after, because he's just sitting there. He's just taking a walk. He's just sitting there on, you know, a public train, and it's like, oh, you shouldn't be walking at, you know, midnight or 1 o'clock or whatever in that area. Well, why not? I mean, isn't this America? Did, like, aren't we free? You know, like, no, you're like not. So basically, you're gonna let the most violent, crazy criminals control your world, and he will not accept that. So I actually really like that. I mean, I find him sympathetic. Um, Even like I think the district attorney and the people that work there, the police are pretty sure he's the vigilante, and they're like, so, and he's like, aren't you gonna arrest him? And they're like, no. And they're like, you know, crime is plummeted since he came around. Our poll numbers are way up. The mayor's happy, which all makes sense, you know. But the police are pissed off. I do like the multiple scenes in the police building where they have all these police. They're all looking for who the vigilante is. They're like, he's a probably ex-military. And he's probably from this age to this age. He's a man. He's, you know, he's this and that. And they're really putting all their resources to get him, and really looking to get him. But it's like I'm not sure if this is conscious on the writers or the director's part, but it's like it's just interesting. Like a vigilante, they spend tons of money, tons of time, you know, police work to catch him. But why aren't they catching the normal criminals that are all over the city, who are ruining the city, who are attacking, you know, women in their houses, you know, and killing them? It doesn't seem like a massive priority, you know? So I thought that was kind of interesting, maybe critique. Like, you know, once you start to do the job of the police that they seem not to be willing or able to do, then they get really angry at you. So thought that was interesting. Um, you know, Bronson is a really good simple actor, but I think he's a really good action hero. I think he gets the job done. I mean, Once Upon a Time in the West, which is a great movie. Um, he is, you know, it's a spaghetti western. It's really like the fourth Man with No Name movie, but Clint Eastwood didn't want to do it though, because he's like, well, I already did a trilogy, and I'm good. So he hired Charles Bronson, and you know, he's a man of few words, but um, I think it's very entertaining, and when he does speak, it's important. So I think it's a nice kind of like old school attitude there. But yeah, you know, this movie's simplistic, very simplistic, but good. Somewhat like a western, a city with no law, and that's the way I look at it. Like I really like when he comes back, and then that guy gives him the gun as a gift, which he didn't even ask for. So he's like, huh, and then he just, you know, load it up and he puts it in his pocket, and he just goes on a walk in Central Park, and then he's attacked, and then he shoots them. So he's not just going around shooting. Oh, you look like you're a criminal, or you look like this or that. He's, they always attack him first. So I think that's important, an important distinction. Because I don't know, I've heard some people criticize this movie. It just promotes violence and all this. It's like, well, they're attacking him first. I mean, come on, whose side are you on, him or the criminals? Um, so, but I mean, I don't, he's probably breaking some New York gun law or something that, but it's like, well, they're attacking him with knives, so what is he supposed to do? Just die? So, yeah, some very simple movie, but I think there is a lot of social commentary in there, especially back from the 70s. And, like, apparently how crime ridden New York was and is very dangerous. So, but yeah, I just like how he just goes on these little walks and trips and goes to the subway in the middle of the night. Um, just see what happens. I'm sure that there were some times when nothing happens, and they don't really show that, but you kind of get that feeling. So, yeah, really enjoyable movie. The director, Michael Winner, I mean, he did some of the other Death Wish movies, which I won't really get into them. I enjoy them for what they are, like 3 and 4, but they're like kind of more silly, just want to be action movies, kind of trying to be like Rambo or something. But I mean, they're okay. I can enjoy them, but yeah, other than that, I haven't seen any of his other movies though. Um, he did one other with, or well, he did another one, The Stone Killer, with Bronson. Did a movie called The Sentinel with Ava Gardner. So he did a bunch of movies. I just haven't seen him. I think the remake of The Big Sleep. So, but Roger Ebert gives Death Wish 3 out of 4 stars. I'm sure he hated the sequels, but he likes it though. It's not a perfect movie. It gives us Charles Bronson in a role that starts out by being somewhat out of character. He plays a liberal, a architect, a former conscientious objector. That's right. That's right. There is that line in the beginning when he says that. So it's interesting to see the slow turn where he's just like, I'm just gonna become a vigilante. Like, and he helps people too. Like that one guy who was getting beat up by all of them, and then he walks over, they pull their knives out, and he kills them. And then the guy, and then he walks away, and then when the police are like, so what does this guy look like? And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, right. He's like, I didn't get a good look at him. So, they're on his side kind of. Some of this movie does remind me a little bit of Batman, definitely, to be sure. But he turns into a familiar Bronson man of action after his wife is murdered and his daughter reduced to catatonia by muggers. His immediate reaction is one of simple grief. Then something happens which suggests a different kind of response. If his office sends him to Arizona on a job and he meets a land developer who's a gun nut, the man takes Bronson to his gun club, watches him squeeze off a few perfect practice rounds, and slips a present into a suitcase when he heads back to New York, a .32 caliber revolver. I also like that scene too, though, because the guy thinks he's never shot a gun. He's like, I've shot many guns. He said he grew up on a farm, I think. So maybe he grew up like in upstate New York or something in the middle of nowhere on a farm. So it makes it more believable later. Like he's a really good shot. So it wasn't just this when he's in the gun club and everything. He already knew how to shoot. He just didn't want to own a gun. Alone in his apartment, Bronson examines snapshots from his recent Hawaiian vacation with his wife. Then he examines the gun. He goes out into the night, is attacked by a mugger, shoots them dead. He goes home and throws up. Right, right. Which is a nice little take too, because like he's not really enjoying it, especially right away. You know, he's not used to this. So again, a nice scene to have in the movie. But for the taste of vengeance, once acquired, has a fascination of its own. And the last half of Death Wish is essentially a series of cat and mouse games in which Bronson goes as a middle aged citizen with a bag of groceries and then murders his attackers. They are, by the way, everywhere. Director Winter gives us a New York in the grip of a reign of terror. This doesn't look like 1974, but like one of those bloody future cities in science fiction novels about anarchy in the 21st century. Literally every shadow holds a mugger, every subway train harbors a killer, and the park is breeding ground for crime. Urban paranoia is one thing, but Death Wish is another. If there were really that many muggers in New York, Bronson could hardly survive long enough to father a daughter, let alone grieve her. Winter directs with cool precision. He's one of the most efficient of directors of action and violence. His muggings and their surprise endings have a sort of inevitable rhyme to them. We're set up for each one, almost like the gunfights in westerns. There's never any question of injustice because the crimes are attempted right there before our eyes. And then Bronson becomes judge and jury and executioner. Yeah, he's basically Judge Dredd. That's what's scary about the film. It's propaganda for private gun ownership and a call to vigilante justice. Even the cops seem to see it that way. Bronson becomes a folk hero as the New York vigilante, and the mugging rate drops 50%. So the police want to catch Bronson, not to prosecute him for murder, but to offer him a deal. Get out of town, stay out of town, and we'll forget this. Bronson accepts the deal, and in the movie's last scene, we see him taking an imaginary bet on a couple of okay, yeah, he goes to Chicago. So yeah, and that's a nice Western reference at the end of the movie too. He's like, we want you out of town, and he's in the hospital, kind of messed up, and then he says to the cop, he's like, by sundown, and the cop laughs. So I like that. But so yeah, I mean, Roger Ebert liked it. 3 out of 4 stars. That's probably what I'd give it. It's not a perfect movie or anything, but oh wow, the role of Paul Kersey was originally intended for Steve McQueen, who turned it down. I could see that, but I'm glad it's Bronson. Okay, Bronson once said in the movie, I certainly don't advocate anyone taking the law into their own hands. I don't think that the film advocates that either. If my films have a lesson, it's that violence doesn't pay. My opinion is that violence only breeds violence. After the success of Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood was offered the role of Paul Kersey but declined, feeling he would be poorly cast. He also thought that Gregory Peck would have been right for the part. Yeah, and he just kind of made a similar movie. Charles Bronson was 53 years old when he appeared in the movie. So, Dino De Laurentiis and Paramount originally wanted to call the film The Sidewalk Vigilante because they thought a movie about death in the title was a deterrent and would put audiences off. Well, I think it made money because they made tons of sequels and streaming and Blu-rays and everything. It's had to have made tons of money. Jeff Goldblum's first film. Yeah, that's about it though. I'm just a big fan of this movie. I think it's really good. I think it's even underrated because I think people kind of just think of it like the sequels, and I mean those can be fun, but this is definitely its own thing, and it's a pretty serious movie. So, but yeah, that's about it. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time.